Hello, welcome to the No Way Jose podcast. Today we're continuing our coverage of Who the Hell Are the West Memphis 3 with Jacob of the Rise of Liberty podcast. We're on part 5 today. We're taking a little bit of a detour from our normal coverage. We're going to do frequently asked questions and comments. There's been a lot of comments come in for this. Now, we are actually on part 5 right now, but we are only covering the comments of parts 1 and parts 2. That is because this show is paywalled, and I have been remiss in my duties in releasing things from the paywall recently. Life's been hectic, but that's one of the benefits you get being a patron. We're at patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. But we're going to cover the first 2 for this one, and then depending if you guys do keep dropping comments, because there are plenty for some reason for this series, we will probably maybe do this every couple episodes or so, break off to go into comments. So just letting you guys know that this is a thing that is there. So without any further ado, we'll go ahead and get into it. If you like this show, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Hit that bell for notifications so you can tell when I'm going live, when I drop new videos much like this. See you in the show. Hello, Jacob. Welcome back to the show. We're on part 5. Ready to get into it. We're going to be digging into the comment section. We won't linger too much on, I don't know. We'll see how this one plays out today. I'm not sure how much we'll linger on non-substantive comments, but maybe just for the fun of it, we will go through all of them today, but we will try not to linger on ones that aren't actually questions or something worth picking at. But there are lots of questions, and this is kind of a complicated case, so I can see why that would be the case. So it makes for another episode for us, me and you digging through. I think you had even said that this is actually like you already kind of have anticipated frequently asked questions with this. So we'll go through the comments, and assuming that we don't get through all of those frequently asked questions come up in one way, shape, or another, we'll go ahead and go into whatever other ones you know of. But we have something like, I think, 60 comments a day, so we very well may not even have to dig into it. They may just naturally come up into our digging into the comments. So how you been, brother?
I've been doing well. Just, hanging in there, just trying to keep up with, the demand for all this content and everything. I kind of think we're like on the precipice of people like you and I and Austin blowing up because, the alternative media is basically just mainstream media at this point. It's just like a newer version, I guess, and so there's a lot of demand for people like us and for our shows, and so just trying to stay on top of that. In fact, I had somebody in my comment section the other day say that you, myself, and Austin are like the trifecta of conspiracy shows. And I thought that was pretty badass.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. It's always nice to hear positive coverage, but make sure to keep that attitude, because there were some meanie pants in the comments, but hey, whatever. Our egos will be able to handle it. Let's start digging through these. First off, we have WC Cola. We're in part 1 right now. This is on YouTube. I don't particularly remember there being a ton of Rumble comments, but I guess if you guys do drop a substantive amount of Rumble comments for future episodes, maybe we'll dig into some of those as well. But I just have the YouTube ones up for right now. But we have WC Cola. It says the Paradise Lost documentaries were one of the blueprints for the wave of innocence fraud media over the recent years. Serial, Making a Murderer, The Staircase, etc. Not really a question, more a statement. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, actually, I do agree with that. It is completely innocence fraud. I mean, so objectively, it is a good documentary. Like, it was very well made, but it is a piece of propaganda, and it should be only studied as such. I do recommend people go watch it, and don't just take like our word for it. Go look at this information yourselves, but go watch the Paradise Lost documentaries. And I think that's one thing that will set people like us apart is we'll tell people to go do that. Like, go check the information for yourselves, make up your own mind. But yeah, it totally is a blueprint. And I think we see this too with like the Sons of Sam documentary on Netflix and stuff, which was a total like character assassination of Maury Terry. And some of these other ones like the Chaos documentary. I mean, Chaos is kind of a limited hangout anyways, but the documentary, it's shit, but yeah, I do agree. It is the blueprint because this was the first one. And in fact, I think Paradise Lost is really kind of what like started America's like fascination with true crime.
Yeah, all right, and we have Fire Pixie next saying a part 2 and probably 3, 4, and 5 are highly requested. Well, looks like you were able to tell the future. We are literally on part 5 right now. Then we have Tucker Delay saying, oh, never mind, I skipped. I jumped to the wrong tab, my bad. Then I have JP6 Gunner. It says, Jose, thanks for this episode. I followed this case from the beginning. I lived in a neighboring state and initially heard about the murders when it happened, although not as detailed until the first documentary came out. Having grown up in a small rural town and sometimes branded as a devil worshiper for wearing black and listening to Metallica as a teen, the same age as Echols, I could definitely sympathize to a degree with the accused initially. Although, to be perfectly honest, I had some doubts, but was never at any point wholly convinced they were innocent. Having done tons of research on the case, I believe they are absolutely guilty based on the large amount of actual evidence. I believe it is a total travesty that these killers were supported by so many celebrities and eventually set free. I have no respect for the producers of the documentaries who, in my estimation, are culpable. Since they were set free and Echols initially moved to Salem, Massachusetts, they've put on a ridiculous dog and pony show with respect to having DNA evidence retested. Some of it actually has been retested, but the killers/attorneys never released the results. Gee, I wonder why. As recently as last month, Echols is still pushing with the DNA retest angle, which could in no way whatsoever exonerate them, but it's the only thing he can try to do in an attempt to save face and continue cashing in online with his witchcraft magic classes. Yeah, you just can't make this shit up. Any thoughts on that? I know I think when you're frequently asked questions, you do reference kind of the wearing metal types
Right.
attire. So maybe that would be kind of a good jumping off point for that, anyways.
Yeah. So I mean, this is like the overall theory, right? Is that they were in the Bible Belt, right? And this is like satanic panic. It's them being persecuted because they were, rebellious teens that wore black clothing and listened to Metallica. And in fact, like Metallica is played all the way through all 3 documentaries. The guys in Metallica, specifically James Hetfield, but more so Lars Ulrich, actually really got behind this stuff in the 90s when this story broke. And so in fact, just to address that stuff real quick, so this is coming out of William Ramsey's book, Abomination. This is chapter 15, Pro and Con. So it's a common misconception that the West Memphis 3 were prosecuted because they wore black clothing and heavy metal t-shirts. Echols, Misskelley, and Baldwin got persecuted because of their involvement with the crime, period. That's it. That's why, they ended up going to trial. It's because of their involvement. Police zeroed in on Echols He had a well-documented history of violence, psychopathy, and suicidal ideation, leading to jail time and institutionalization in mental hospitals. Damien Echols was known to collect the bleached skulls of animals he found or killed. He assaulted his peers and threatened to kill a number of people. His association with satanic practices was well known to the police and to the community. So this isn't just I wore black t-shirts and so now I'm, a persecuted person. It's literally because of the actions that he was taking. That's pretty much just it. They were persecuted because of their involvement in the crime.
All right, on to Mike M007 says West Memphis 3 are guilty. Well, I think we're likely. I'm pretty much in agreement. We have
Right.
Nikki Chargreaves. You both are very good. You absolutely agree with your views. Thank you. Stinky Sock 420. Nice. Jose has a great taste in wall paint. Thank you. Sam the Carnivore. I spent a lot of time going down this rabbit hole years ago. The people that have really researched this case and are the most knowledgeable, in my opinion, believe the 3 are guilty. Yes. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Maybe the people who have researched this, I don't know, maybe that'd be a good time to maybe for those interested in other, whether it be books. And we mentioned William Ramsey. That's one resource, but right. Maybe this would be a good spot to mention resources. I don't know.
Really, it's kind of hard to find resources that are, good as far as they are guilty resources, which is why I lean so heavily on William Ramsey's book. There are a few others out there, and I'm sure none of them come to mind at the moment. But maybe by the time we're done, I'll make sure and when we wrap up this series, I'll make sure and give like some recommendations and stuff for everyone for further reading. But honestly, the best source of information is just like the court documents, court transcripts, the actual evidence. That's kind of the best route to take, and just look at what the jurors saw, look at what the prosecutors were doing. And go watch the documentaries, honestly. Go watch Paradise Lost 1, 2, and 3. Honestly, the important one is number 1. Part 2, they just blame Christopher Byers' dad. And then the third one, they blame Terry Hobbs, pretty much the whole thing, which I think that's why 2 and 3 were made. It flat out, the only people who... And this is my personal opinion, the only people who claim that they're innocent are people who know nothing of the case or people who are lying and have some sort of motive. In fact, from William Ramsey's book, he says, there is one common demeanor for all the supporters of the West Memphis 3. They all saw one or all of the Paradise Lost documentaries by HBO. They then based their judgment on a 90-minute film and the continued profession of innocence by Echols and Baldwin. John Grisham recently was a guest on Piers Morgan Tonight on CNN, and that was when William wrote the book. Grisham told Piers Morgan his thoughts on the West Memphis 3 case. Quote, if you look at what happened to those 3 defendants, it was mishandled from the very beginning, says Grisham. They rely on bogus confessions. They rely on jailhouse snitches. That's his quote. Neither of these statements are entirely true. There were 5 Jessie Misskelley confessions, actually 8, and the convictions were not wholly based upon evidence from fellow jail inmates. So that's just kind of where I land. If you think they're innocent, you know jack shit about the case.
All right, we got Lola Jane. Says Dave McGowan did look into these 3 some, and there was an Opperman episode with him and William Ramsey. One thing he said is that it's not really about the other 2. It's a Damien show to this day. Agreed, and also that it seems like a group/cult situation. There were more people there, higher ups on the totem. Potentially this is generational for Damien. I think they all witnessed it. Damien more than likely participated and was rewarded for taking one for the team. Look who flocked around him when he got out. The Duffer Brothers literally based a character after him, a hero by the by, and other characters in Stranger Things literally have the names of the victims. That's a lot in there, yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I completely agree with that. It does seem as though that there was more of a cult involvement. I don't think that at least Damien acted alone. I don't think anyone else was there during the murders per se. I mean, maybe, but that's kind of that's just pure speculation. But I do believe that there was involvement from a cult, and I mean, Damien admitted to that he was involved in Wiccan covens and stuff like that. So, whether they had involvement, I think they did, but it's just speculation at this point.
All right, Michael 775. Milton did Paradise Lost, not to be confused with Paradiso by Dante. I'm assuming you're talking about the literary works, because I believe what we mentioned, Paradise Lost, is the name of or maybe it's a little bit different. That was one of the documentaries, I believe. So I believe we probably referenced the literary works in the episode. That's probably what he's getting at. Paradise Lost is like I know it's kind of the spin on hell, but it's not the classic like Dante's Inferno one that which was Paradiso.
Right.
Then we got Dan and Fran Keller were convicted of SRA and eventually released, declared innocent, and awarded almost $3.5 million. Does that ring a bell for you at all?
So it does. These are actually this is one of the few cases, especially that the Satanic Panic apologists like to point to. So it's actually a case that I haven't really looked into a whole lot. But from what I do know, they were genuinely wrongfully convicted. So that is one of the problems with this. Now, people that support the Satanic Panic narrative like to point to things like this, but my rebuttal to all of this is that, well, to prevent people from being wrongfully convicted, we need to educate ourselves on this as a society. You don't hide Satanism or cult crimes. You don't deny these things. And then, expect that people are going to know if somebody is wrongfully convicted, because the whole narrative is that no occult crime is committed, no satanic crime is committed. It's but nobody argues if a Christian bombs an abortion clinic. That's a crime done in the name of Christ. Nobody argues that Christians have committed crimes. But then once it comes to Satanists, for some reason, it's just you're fucking nuts if you say that they do. And it's well, that's not even close to true. This does happen. Now, I do agree that we should not wrongfully convict people that are, well, innocent. We shouldn't put people away in prison for committing a crime that they didn't. And if we're going to accuse people, especially of child abuse, we better be damn sure, 100% sure that, whoever is guilty of it. Now, I do agree with that. But the way in which we do that is we educate people. We don't hide the information, and we don't deny that it exists.
All right, we got God is Love. It says, once you get into the tattoo realm, you're already a little gay. I'm assuming referencing Damien Echols and his many tattoos that very clearly are referencing different occult symbols and such. Yeah, I'll agree a little bit. Yeah. Uncle Ted says more Arkansas. You are always asking for that. We got LFW says they need a list of everyone in church on that Sunday. Then unalive everyone in the town that wasn't at church. It's not collective punishment. You have to posse down this crap. Obviously, I don't agree with that, but I guess I like the enthusiasm.
It's kind of a funny comment.
Yeah, a little funny. And it's Lola Jane, repeat, was in there earlier. It says, also, if I wasn't clear, I do think that all the arguments for them being completely framed and having no part in the murders is garbage. I do think there was a bigger group involved. Okay, I guess you're clarifying your previous comments, because it could have been interpreted as you were saying, there was another group involved thus
Right.
thus expunging them of any sort of guilt. It wasn't them, but whereas you're implying no, they were probably involved in that, but there was more going on. I think you already referenced that, Jacob.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything more on that one.
No, just that I would agree with that. I think
Yeah.
there was definitely more to the picture than what we know.
We got Ralph says, "Oh heck yeah, brother, for sure." Give you a little love there. Sam the Carnivore says, "I bet if you reach out to William Ramsey, he would appear on your show." Yes, he would. I've had him on my show many
Yep.
times. I think he's been on yours as well. I mean, he's kind of, but I'm not gonna take him for a series like this. So I mean, it would be more if like I had like a single episode I want to take him on. I won't want to use up this much of his time, so I'll do that to Jacob though. Then God is love again says he stated as to his beliefs there is no God, but there is a goddess, and she requires sacrifice. I'm assuming maybe he's meaning Damien said that. I don't know if you recall that quote. This sounds like something Damien would say. So then there's Heavy Metal Rehab says this case gives Delphi, Indiana vibes in a weird sort of way. I have long suspected that in Delphi, most of the town knows who murdered Liberty German and Abigail Williams. However, the entire town, including law enforcement and even the judge, are protecting the murderers when it comes to Delphi. In Delphi, however, the defense for Richard Allen pointed toward Odinist being involved, which I don't necessarily buy. I feel Satanist would be more accurate. Rick Allen, an innocent man, was sentenced to 130 years in prison. And yes, like the media involvement in West Memphis 3 that helped to free 3 murderers, it was the opposite in Delphi. Rick's name was dragged through the mud for years prior to his trial by mainstream media, which was likely a big reason he was convicted of a crime he did not commit. It is sickening how much mainstream media can derail justice in these cases. Same sort of thing happened to Brian Korberger in Idaho 4. What is truly sickening about the West Memphis 3, aside from justice not being served, is that Damien Echols has his own YouTube channel where he openly talks about magic and Satanism. The murders of those little boys had nothing to do with Satanism. I don't have a ton to add, and I don't know if maybe you do, Jacob, to some of the stuff in the first paragraph. Now, I will tell you, Austin is big on Delphi, so if you ever want to get him spurging, call into Already Dead, and that will take up a good at least 20 minutes of our time if we're having a slow episode, help a brother out. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you have anything to add to any of that. I mean,
not a whole lot. I have heard the comparison to Delphi quite a bit. Delphi is something I haven't touched just because, other people in our circle, Dana, Austin, a bunch of other like really good people have touched Delphi. I probably will at some point. It's just not one that I want to touch right now. But I actually believe that it's more closely related to the Stephen Newberry case. I think Stephen Newberry is a lot closer related to the West Memphis 3 case. For anyone that doesn't know, Stephen Newberry was beat to death by 3 friends of his with baseball bats. And let's see, that took place in 86, I believe. And the 3 people that committed that crime were sent to prison and later released because of a new state law in Missouri, I think is where it took place. So yeah, I think the Stephen Newberry case is a lot closer to this, but yeah, it kind of just repeats itself, right? Like this satanic crime stuff, it rhymes. It doesn't, repeat exactly as it is, but there's a lot of similar cases.
All right, and here's another one getting a little bit more into criticism. So for the both of us, here's Sam the Carnivore says, "Okay, I listened to the whole thing yesterday. Please take this as constructive criticism. This case cannot be covered in 1 hour, and even 5 more episodes would only scratch the surface." Well, a little commentary for me. Luckily for you, we were planning on doing many. So obviously, this was given with the context of the first episode. I don't know, maybe you were thinking we were only going to do one. I think we have many more to come. So yeah, we are still scratching the surface. But anyways, keep going on. I said, "Jose, you should have prepared for the interview. You should have more knowledge. You should have some knowledge of the case so you will know what questions to ask at the very least watch the documentary so that you can understand how biased those productions were, and you will have a basic introduction to the cast of characters. On that point, I will say, as someone who does do podcasts regularly, I do work on presentations. Obviously, I'm aware I'm not the best presenter of ideas in the world. I do my best. Maybe not necessarily my best. I do have to. I guess I'd be lying and say I do my best, but my best while balancing other considerations in my life. I can only put so much time into things. So I would be lying to you if I was saying I was literally giving it my all. No, this is in the order of priorities. It's up there. I mean, I enjoy this. It's a good hobby. I do make a little bit of money off of it, but it's by no means near the top of my priorities. So now I will say though, from like the mentality, I will say perhaps I was wrong. Depending on the topic, I will depending on what it is and especially how I feel like maybe the audience will be primed for it, I may or may not be more or less prepared for an episode, intentionally or unintentionally. I guess maybe sometimes unintentionally, but a lot of times intentionally. Like for this one, I didn't really do any. That was the whole point. Like because it was right. Like I've been in the parapolitics space. Like the show's been more of a conspiracy parapolitics show for a while, and I still like was very, 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 very foggy in any West Memphis 3. So, and I'm someone who runs a show. So for my head, maybe I was wrong. Maybe you were correct. Maybe I should have. But as the host, I thought it was more conducive for me be actually coming from a position of more ignorance while trying to scratch at ideas, because it'll make me approach digging into that, the sort of probing questions I give Jacob from the perspective of the uninitiated, which I'm assuming the audience is going to be, considering I was. So maybe I was wrong there. So I mean that's fine. I understand. There are, depending on the topic. Also, to be fair, it's something like I do run a podcast that's I do usually like. This week's I've been really bad this week, but on a good week I'll do Monday through Friday. I'll do a morning show, and then I'll do like at least 2, sometimes even 3 of these paywall episodes, and they're different topics. So I have other interests as well. I'm actually more interested in things like I'm currently reading an Oklahoma City bombing book. So when I have time for research, it's not necessarily going to be given whatever the given topic of the week is that I'm into. So it is what it is. It is also kind of balancing, my interests. Is to some degree, this is a variety show. I can't be an expert on everything, so that's why I bring on guests. So, but I try to have some sort of level. I could do better, obviously, so I appreciate the input. Continuing on, also the guy you had on was not prepared. I'm sure he knows the case well, but he got some details slightly wrong and also got some names wrong. Well, hey, we all make mistakes. You guys will do much better if you have a better plan for how to present the case going forward. I can't wait to hear the remaining episodes. Thanks again. Well, I hope maybe the other episodes, this is after the first episode, so maybe we just fumbled the bag. I think I had a lot going on at that time, so maybe to some degree it was my fault that it didn't come over as good as it could have. I mean, I don't know. You guys let me know if maybe maybe you're the minority. I don't know. I'm not trying to downplay it. I appreciate the constructive criticism. It didn't come off as mean-spirited. I understand all the considerations, and I could have done better, I'm sure. But I don't know anything on that, Jacob. That was more just a criticizing of how we presented. And we've been trying to, I think, the first episode I usually do in any sort of continuing series is usually that introductory episode where right. I'm more taking the position of the kind of the ignorant somewhat and sort of, pulling at the, the official narrative, the kind of what are the bones here, the characters. And then these later episodes, we've actually had like a given, like, this is what we're trying to get at every episode. So I hope every topic's different, so it's kind of hard to figure out how to segment it up for a series. So hopefully you're liking what we're doing so far. We don't necessarily have some grandmaster plan. It is sort of being somewhat fleshed out as we go. But yeah, any thoughts on that? I don't know if you have anything else. I mean, maybe obviously people can always do better, and then they'll try to do better. So,
yeah, I'm just gonna criticize his criticism and just say,
"Fuck you, dude."
Yeah, right. Go fuck yourself. No, I mean, I'm not exactly sure how I was not prepared. So, I mean, if you're gonna criticize somebody, at least tell them how. So, how I was not prepared, I'm not exactly what you mean by that, and like what names did I get wrong? So, I mean, I take criticism a lot better when, I know what I did wrong. So this kind of just seems kind of empty to me. So um, I would beg to differ until, I've had like an actual example of how I was not prepared or what names I got wrong. Otherwise, I'm going to say, no, I didn't. So
Well, I don't recall anything, so I don't know, but I also don't have a deep understanding of this case. So maybe there was something, maybe there was people make mistakes, maybe misspoke or something. It happens,
Right. But
so
just
I've done that.
Criticism unless there's a actual example.
All right, user chat had best example of spree killers, Mickey and Mallory, natural born killers, in my opinion. And then at Jeff, now he's a meanie, saying brother the guy stinks. He has the attitude that he knows more than anyone, but he rambles while rarely citing anything relevant or compelling. He's just pointing at murky waters and calling it murky, which, to be fair, that was the first episode where I have a feeling, I have definitely seen comments. I don't know if I necessarily have all of them up. I think it might be the filtered comments, and I don't want to have to reformat it and go through them all. So I know YouTube sometimes downvotes stuff if they're being disgruntled. So maybe this just happened to be the ones that made it in. I did notice part of why I wanted to cover this because I do feel like this is weirdly one of those topics that the people come out of. So it's like you don't want to be too schizophrenic and be like every criticism's like, oh, it's the fucking glowies or whatever. But it is like there are certain topics where not necessarily glowies, but crazies or whatever, or just it's a maybe to be fair, some sort of topic that people hold tightly to themselves for some reason or another. I don't know, and have strong opinions. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know exactly the motivations, but there are certain things where like, oh, people come out of the woodwork. So maybe this guy really just doesn't like Jacob for some reason. But that was the first episode. To be fair, we weren't really trying to get into the minutia of like. So that was the first episode. You were giving him shit about not citing anything or relevant. We were just kind of scratching at the surface in that episode, so we wouldn't really be citing much at that point anyway. So I don't know. This just kind of comes off as someone being shitty just to be shitty. So
yeah. And to that, I'll say first of all, I do know more than you. So the whole point is that I'm supposed to share what I do know so that others know more. Because I want others to know more. Like that's the whole point. So if I come off that I do know more, it's because I do. I've spent quite a more of my life researching this case than I am comfortable admitting. And I wish people would know more. So yes, I do know more. And yeah, citing anything relevant. Well, it was relevant to some people. So what's relevant to one might not be relevant to others.
All right. Actually, I'm going to go back through let's go back through this one right here. I actually said fuck it, and I went to change it into the newest, so it's not just the featured, because that's the difference in YouTube. So now this is also going to show the potential spam, the thing so a little bit of disgruntled just to mix it up just for fun. Why not? We got Janudin saying fucking shit music. I thought it was pretty cool. I like Du Hast. Du Hast is a fun song. Scroll through some more. Here's one we missed. For God is Love. I'd say you're a pretty smart guy. Hard to believe you're an atheist. Not judging. I was there myself briefly. Just surprised. Each their own. I get it. All right, fair enough. I don't really know what to say to that. Yeah, to be very clear, I always try to make this distinction. Really, I'm just being it's kind of I really should say I'm agnostic because everyone has certain loaded thoughts when they hear atheist, but I don't know, maybe it's just me being a stickler, but it's always kind of bugged me that those aren't conflicting ideas. Like agnostic or gnostic is like these are almost different sides of a spectrum. Like they're different questions. One's a question of knowledge, one's a question of belief, and so I'm a hyper-logical autist. Like I don't to the point to where I'm agnostic. I don't make any sort of claims that I know there isn't a God, but I also there's been nothing that's convinced me that there is one. I wouldn't even I'd say I don't even be surprised if there was one. Like I'd be unsurprised if there was some sort of I guess it does kind of. While it is kind of a fallacious argument, it does kind of feel like you're like, it should be. It's like with the watchmaker, it's literally an argument from ignorance, so it is actually a fallacy. But like it feels right, like it would be something, but I don't know what that thing is. I have no conception of it. So like, I don't have any sort of belief of anything. I mean, so yeah, that's just where I'm at. And that's until something proves otherwise. That's just where I'm at. I don't know. Then we got Busy Basil. Says, nah, the Chomo stepdad and his buddy did it. They caught them both admitting it. What are we doing here? I don't know if you, what do you think of that one?
The Chomo stepdad, so I'm not sure exactly who he's referring to. Yeah, actually, I do have a little bit to say about this. I'm just going to read it out of William Ramsey's book, because there were two stepdads that were accused of committing the crimes. John Mark Byers, which was Christopher Byers' dad, and Terry Hobbs. They were both accused. Like I said, Paradise Part 2 was basically like the whole documentary was nothing but to blame John Mark Byers. And then Part 3 was to blame Terry Hobbs. Part 2 didn't work. So blaming John Mark Byers didn't work. And that didn't work for a reason. The claim that John Mark Byers committed the crimes. There is no possible way Byers could have been at the site of the murders. Police and neighbors saw him frequently searching the neighborhood on the night of May 5th, 1993. West Memphis police investigated Byers immediately after the murders, took blood and hair samples, and eliminated him as a suspect. While Byers often sought the attention of the media, he cannot be considered a credible suspect. Supporters of the West Memphis Three consider him the chief alternative suspect until about 2006, 2007, when they changed their focus to Terry Hobbs. Terry Hobbs committed the crime. DNA analysis on crime scene evidence conducted in 2006-2007 settled on a hair from which his personal DNA profile could not be excluded. So this was when they found a hair of Terry Hobbs in one of the shoelaces that was tied on one of the little boys. And basically they ran the DNA, and this is called secondary transference. So the boys, go figure, were all friends and spent time at the Hobbs household. So it stands to reason that any of those boys could have picked up any sort of beard hair, head hair, or whatever from being at the house. Imagine that.
My beard hair goes everywhere, yeah.
Right. So when they found the hair, basically the way that DNA analysis works, especially at the time, they were able to say that they weren't able to exclude Terry Hobbs. But the thing is the DNA pattern that he has, that Terry Hobbs has, also has a matching pattern of another 1.8 million people. So there's 1.8 million plus one people that they cannot exclude from this. Real quick to finish off with this. Let's see. After 19 years, the defense found one fiber with DNA from which Hobbs could not be removed. Of admissible tests on hair evidence, the defense found one strand of evidence gamine to Hobbs at the scene. The hair was found on the shoelaces used to bind Michael Moore. Third-party analysis of evidence does not equate to an exoneration. A number of the hairs tested at the site were found to be either canine or feline hairs. Moreover, all three children spent time and played at each other's houses. This does not implicate Hobbs in the crime in any way. According to the defense, this is grounds for the full exoneration of the West Memphis Three, which is fucking insane. This type of absurd evidentiary fishing expedition does not equate to the guilt of Hobbs. Any witnesses that implicate Hobbs are equally suspect, as these sightings only came forward after offers for a reward were spread through the community. Why didn't these witnesses make a statement at the time of the murders when their memories were fresh?
All right, on to the next. Back to LFW. How come the parents don't? And I'm going to change the wording here, as I never, ever do, because I'm really bad about remembering to do that, but this time I will. How come the parents don't unalive these dudes? And that is a very good question. I don't know. We have King David saying, smash the like button, dumpers. Yes, please hit that like button. And he's also making a little reference for those who are unaware. I do a Monday through Friday, typically around 11 a.m. I do a morning show, and a lot of the people, the regular followers, like to call themselves dumpers. That's a little cult we are creating over there. All right, let's get into the comments of the second episode. This is where we covered the multiple confessions. I believe it was Jessie's multiple confessions. That's the one we went to. So that will be the context in the comment section here. Let's start out. Tucker DeLay says that intro song is exactly how the original should have been, with the little, I believe it was Jolly on Klebold edit there, so I'm assuming that's what you're getting at. B-Man, now we have another disgruntled customer, says there are some large gaps in the research made for this episode. I'd be glad to offer corrections and additional context that would provide a fuller picture, though I sense you've already formed a strong opinion on the matter, and we'll stick with it. Several parts of this discussion are incorrect. He does follow up with some other, but I guess let's dig a little bit into, somebody got into the replies with him. Somebody says, don't be shy, spill the beans on what is missing. Pretty sure everyone here just wants the whole truth. And then he says, well, for one, Jesse confessed to his lawyer against his vice because Jesse believed it was his only way to avoid life in prison. He states this in a transcript of a phone call at the time. The prosecution was meeting with him, and Jesse initially believed he would get the death penalty after he first confessed if he didn't take a deal. Jesse also did recant immediately after the confession. There's a lot to this. However, he was telling his family he had nothing to do with it in writing. He also never lowered his performance IQ after speaking to his lawyer. He did have a filmed conversation about the upcoming hearing about his results, though. This was filmed after he had done the testing. There's a ton more that's wrong, but I don't have time to go through it all.
Yeah, no. So first of all, he didn't confess to his lawyer until after the confession with the police officers to begin with, and he was already in prison. So, I mean, okay. And he confessed to his family on paper. Okay. So that's just another confession, or saying that he had nothing to do with it. And he never recanted any of his confessions. Not a single one has ever been recanted, ever. So I don't know where this dude is getting his information from, but yeah.
Well, here's more from him. At 40 minutes in, you say that Jesse was basically being told to fail his IQ test by his lawyer. Yes. This wasn't the case. His lawyer is talking about the upcoming hearing about his IQ results, which had already been tested. Jesse obviously had a very low IQ. Even his full-scale IQ was tested as low as 67 previously.
So, in fact, I've actually got something to back this up. So let me just pull it up real quick. I actually have the very clip that I was talking about. Let's see if I can just find it real quick. Let's see, media. And I have information regarding, let's see, where is this? Regarding Jessie Misskelley's IQ. Okay, here it is. Let's just go ahead and have this pulled up. Give me just a sec. Let's see, here we go. Yeah, so this is from the Paradise Lost documentary itself. All right, include audio. See if let's see. Okay, let me pull this up. You'll have to wait. You have to remove the YouTube things for me to pull that up. Let's see. Okay, so this is Jessie Misskelley being told by his counsel. So this is after he's been arrested. Being told by his counsel that if he scores low enough on his IQ test, the state won't be able to execute him.
No one's going to be saying that you're stupid or that you're dumb or making fun of you, but the court's going to be very interested in determining exactly at what level you are functioning, how well you're able to read, how well you're able to write, things of that.
Okay, so based upon what he said, this was filmed after he was already tested, so none of this makes sense.
Nature. Does that make sense? Okay. So if the court determines that you are operating below average, then there's a possibility that the court will not be allowed, or the state will not be allowed to impose the death penalty against you. Do you understand what that means?
Yeah.
We've got about 10 weeks before the trial comes up in January.
Yeah.
Are you looking forward to having the trial?
For a little bit. Not much.
So there's that. Now, to speak upon the rest of his IQ testing, the belief that Misskelley only had an IQ of 72, that Misskelley's IQ has been significantly lowballed is evidenced not only by his 84/88 previous performance scores, actually close to the average of 90 to 105, and certainly not retarded or even borderline retarded, as the film says, but also by the audio of Misskelley's confessions, where his cognitive and verbal abilities can be judged by any listener as capable of relating a detailed retelling of the murder. It wasn't until his lawyer told him he might avoid the death penalty if he were judged mentally challenged that Misskelley began performing poorly on his IQ test, resulting in the much touted score of 72. Footage of his lawyer, Stedham, telling him about the benefit of being deemed mentally handicapped is the original Paradise Lost film. Stedham likes to say Misskelley, quote, has the mind of a 5-year-old, end quote, a claim he repeats in Paradise Lost 3.
Yeah, I'll get real retarded real quick, too, if I'm facing the death penalty.
Right. So,
yeah.
There we go.
Nikki Chargreaves again, very good episode in terms of the shoelaces. In my opinion, Jessie didn't tie them, so just assumed it was rope. That's all. I know there was a kind of a little bit of like confusion about rope, shoelaces, but it's like they're kind of the same thing. So
right.
You're saying because he didn't tie them, he just thought it was rope. Then I don't know. Be Good B says Jessie was facing life in prison or the death penalty if he didn't testify against the others. So yes, there's a very logical explanation as to why he would support the prosecution's narrative to help himself avoid that.
Right.
Any thoughts there?
I mean, that's exactly right. So like you just said, I'm also about to go real fucking retarded if I'm facing the death penalty, you know? Like there is a vested interest in trying to save your own skin to do this. And there's other evidence of him showing cognitive ability above, 72? So, I mean, that's just, it's absurd. And seriously, all you have to do is just listen to him. He probably is closer to average, maybe on the lower side of average, but he's not retarded. So, and you can tell, honestly, now that he's been released from prison, also, he's stopped repeating this. So, I mean, it's just one of these things like
so you don't have to pretend to be retarded anymore. You drop it real quick.
Yeah. Right. Which the fact that he could even pretend to be retarded shows how not retarded he is because he's pretending to be retarded. So it's like, I don't know. This is one of the craziest talking points to me. And even if he was 72, that is still smart enough to know right from wrong. So even if he is retarded, so what? You know, like that doesn't make sense to me.
All right. Be Good B again said, I'd want more evidence to take Buddy Lucas' statement seriously. For one, Buddy said the officer pulled him into making a statement prior to recording it. If you listen to both Buddy's and Jessie's explanation as to why he had to shoes, it was simply because he borrowed them after he got his wet. The shoes were also tested with nothing matching the dirt from the crime scene.
Sure. I mean, there is a lot more to that. And yeah, I mean, all of this really does depend on if you believe any of it or not. Because, I mean, you can hear all of this evidence and still be like, nah. You know? So it's like, and even if the number one confession with Buddy Lucas isn't trustworthy, that still leaves 7 So he still kept confessing. You know, it's like, and I think the confession that I would pull more into question, if anything, would be the one on his way to prison when he confessed to the 2 guards, you know? Like if we're supposed to take the narrative truthfully that the police force had it out for them, then wouldn't 2 guards on their way to prison like lie about this, you know? Like, now I don't think they did. I really don't, because I don't see the purpose. And I also don't see the purpose of why Jesse would even confess in the first place. He was already sentenced going to jail, but he was told by the police officers that it couldn't be used against him, which is why we see the reports talking about him laughing when he's confessing about this. Now, there's also the confession when he confessed to one of his cellmates, which, once again, why is he still confessing to begin with? And why is the story consistent? But also, why wouldn't you pull that into question? I mean, it's a criminal, you know, but this criminal also came in and told the judge, don't ever let this man out. And, you know, he shared a sense of fear based upon what Jessie Misskelley told him. So, I mean, I kind of agree, you know, you don't have to trust Buddy Lucas. And there is more evidence out there. Maybe I'll dig into that and pull more up, but this still leaves 7 confessions.
All right, Connor Fisher, we have another disgruntled customer. Says, what you are reporting in this video is in fact the mainstream narrative. The West Memphis 3 all spent 18 years in prison. They spent 2 years in prison even after the DNA evidence showed that they were not responsible. When a retrial was had to determine who the real killer or killers are, the courts refused to do the analysis, probably because the most likely culprits were involved with the local police department. This interview is actually kind of disgraceful, and I do not think you guys did your due diligence on this one. If you were looking at the evidence provided by the local police department, then you are strictly basing your case off of potentially doctored evidence. Now, I will say, I will respond really quickly. I obviously did not do my due diligence as I responded earlier. I am the host here. You know, so I don't know if there's some sort of person who's really out there that catches my ear, that is, I don't know, interesting, and I think does a good presentation on why they didn't do it, then I'd be happy to have him on. I just haven't seen that person, so that's just who I have on right now. So I don't know. Yes, I did not. So I'm shirking all my responsibility off to Jacob.
I'll totally back that up. If there is anybody out there that actually does have a coherent argument, I will gladly have them on my show to sit and listen to the opposition. I totally will. First, I will say, though, is that my position is not based solely on police reports. That is only part of it. It's also based upon a medical examiner reports, crime scene photos, interviews, all sorts of things. So it's not just one form of evidence here. It's also based upon what the defense brought forth as well. It's also after watching the documentaries. It's also after watching what these, one hell of a novel there.
Yeah.
But it's based on more than just police reports. Now, there was something in the very first that he said. You might have to reread that. Something
he said about it being the mainstream narrative. That bit.
Yeah, that the mainstream narrative. I mean, I'm not even quite sure exactly what that is. The mainstream narrative is that they didn't do it. So, I mean, I'm confused by that.
Well, it's I think what they're getting at is because it's like the hipster phenomenon, I guess, that their idea is that they were, whenever they were hopping on this documentary movement, they're like, oh, this is that organic shit. Like this is, oh, we're pushing back against the mainstream narrative. That's that.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, these poor youths who like metal or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like that was the mainstream narrative. Like the pedo or the satanic panic or whatever. That was the official narrative. And it was just a bunch of old fuddy-duddy conservatives or whatever. And and we took back the power, and we got these guys out, like, so that we were the real, it's this hipster vibe is what it is. So
right.
although funny enough, by that same intuition, then that would make, well, ta-da, now that's the mainstream narrative.
Right.
and here we are pushing it against it. I mean, this is kind of like a snake eating itself over and over again.
Right.
So really what really matters is who cares, I guess, really, if it's the mainstream narrative or not.
Right.
What really matters is what's the information.
Well, and what the truth is. Also, just to real quick, the comment about DNA evidence, I'm not sure exactly what he's referencing, but all the DNA evidence actually points to them doing it. In fact, on the first video, one of the comments was mentioning how in 2011, they actually did some more DNA testing and the lawyers never released it. Why is that? Because I guarantee you that if the DNA evidence exonerated any of them, that would have been everywhere. There is zero reason why the defense attorneys would be holding on to information that exonerated their clients. In fact, they would be disbarred if they had information that exonerated their clients and they hid it. So there's a reason why this 2011 DNA evidence is being hid from the public. It's like, I don't know what DNA evidence he's talking about, but there absolutely is none that exonerates them because they have never been exonerated. They were twice convicted child murderers, and they always will be.
All right. Now, this one's a little bit longer. We're not going to, for the interest of, I don't know, not getting bogged down in forever, I'm assuming, I haven't read this yet, we're about to read it together, I'd assume there's a lot in this. So I'd assume that we're not really going to be able to reply to it all. Hell, we even have a back and forth. We won't even get to the back and forth. We'll just read this, get your initial take. I would say don't necessarily feel the need to respond to everything. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe it's one concise argument and it's only addressing 1 or 2 points. So maybe I'm getting a little bit over myself here. I just see a lot and I go, I bet you there's a lot of points to address here. Yeah. And I do not want to spend an hour here. So I'm going to read it in one go, and I guess you can kind of just take what you think is the meaningful stuff out of it and address it. It says, if you listen to... This is the same person again, by the way, Connor Fisher. If you listen to Damien Echols talk about his experience, there was a youth counselor who had ties to the local police department that had several accusations of molesting/raping the troubled teens that he was responsible for overseeing. Damien refused to do sexual favors for this pedo youth counselor character, and this was likely the reason that he got implicated in the crime. That man, along with potentially other people in the police department, were the most likely culprits in the raping and killing of these children. Recently, within the past few years, they, as in Echols and others, were trying to get the DNA evidence analyzed in court to determine the actual person/people responsible for the rape and killing of those children, and the courts refused to look at that evidence. Would someone who is guilty litigate and advocate for the analysis of DNA evidence after being exonerated if they were in fact guilty? I think suggesting that the West Memphis 3 were in fact guilty is a huge misjustice, being that they were also victims in all of this. I can't speak for the other two involved, but Damien Echols spent years on death row and in solitary confinement for a crime he didn't commit. If you look at how the case was, and it has been handled up into the modern day, it seems obvious that the true culprits were not brought to justice for their crimes, and the people implicated and imprisoned were also victims of mass hysteria and false forced confessionals amidst the satanic panic era. If you listen to the stories of countless people who were wrongfully accused and put on death row, many of them were coerced into making false confessions and later exonerated due to DNA evidence and so forth. False confessions are very common, and the process that police utilize to interrogate and coerce people into making those confessions are right up there with MK Ultra mind control tactics. You can get most people to admit to doing almost anything given the right tactics and manipulations. Sleep and food deprivation, forceful interrogation methods, and abuse, followed by the false friendly relatability. And in the end, creating a narrative about what happened and why, then telling the interrogated that this can all end if you just admit to X, that all are a part of these methodologies. Chase Hughes talks about how you can coerce people into false confessions and almost make them believe they committed a crime they didn't do. Patty Hearst is sort of an extreme example of this process. Josh Dubin is also an advocate and whistleblower who works towards getting wrongfully accused people off of death row. He can attest to this process. You should listen to these individuals and what Echols has to say in defense of his accusations before damning them. Jessie Misskelley is the only one who seems to be of a guilty conscience. However, he also seems to be the most mentally unstable of the accused. Beyond the confessions and court evidence, if you look into the case, it all seems suspiciously orchestrated very early on to implicate the troubled youth before adequate evidence was collected. And if members of the police department were involved in the crimes, then how can you trust any of the so-called evidence that was collected by the guilty parties? I know it's a lot, but feel free to go wherever you want with that one, Jacob.
First of all, I'll just say most of that was like a leftist meme, you know?
Yeah, it was. It felt like this is like if I was whatever my conception of whatever the propaganda is, it was basically all that. Like, okay, all right. Yeah.
It seems like somebody who kind
come
of
on,
knows
bro,
what
please, bro. You know, like that
Yeah.
meme, like, come on, really, bro.
Right.
Which, okay, whatever, maybe they're telling the truth. It just seems like a lot, and there's a lot of mind reading, I think, going on there too. But yeah,
they're definitely not telling the truth, though.
Mhm.
Is the problem, and they're conflating a lot. And what's interesting is they're kind of hitting this wall of text and this whole like wall of quote unquote information, and this is usually done so that somebody doesn't actually read it, and it's really hard to refute all of this, right? Because now you're going to come back and you're going to refute all of this, and it's going to be an even longer reply. But whoever this is knows like what they're talking about, sort of, but they either, once again, know nothing of the case or they're lying, period. So for instance, let's just take Jessie Misskelley was browbeaten by aggressive detectives for 11 hours, after which he broke and provided a false confession. Misskelley was arrested on June 3rd, 1993, as thoroughly addressed earlier in this book. Once again, highly recommend Abomination by William Ramsey, one of the best books out there. Detective Allen drove Misskelley to the police station at 9:45 a.m. Recognizing Misskelley acted nervous and that he was underage, Allen drove back to see Jessie's father to obtain the permission to continue questioning at 10:30 a.m. Detective Allen decided that a polygraph would help make a determination that Misskelley was lying. The polygraph took 2 hours, and results indicated deception. After 12:30 p.m., an additional round of questioning occurred, and unfortunately, there is no record of this interaction, which I will say is, a huge mistake on behalf of the police. Like, period. I will never argue that was good for them to do. But this is usually what they point to. Now, according to police, Jessie implicated himself, Damien Echols, and Jason Baldwin in the murders and was arrested at 2:44 p.m. Misskelley also provided additional information about the background of the coven and crime. Another round of questioning started at 2:45 p.m. after the arrest of Misskelley, which was recorded by police. At the completion of this round of questioning, Inspector Gitchell questioned Misskelley again to clear up a number of confusing inaccuracies in Misskelley's earlier statement. The entire meeting lasted from 9:45 a.m. to 5 p.m., a span of 7.5 hours, 2 hours of which were used to polygraph Misskelley. The interrogation definitely did not last 11 hours, and not all of the 7 hours were spent grilling Misskelley. The defense presented the court with a motion to suppress evidence, which was rejected. According to Prosecutor Fogelman, Misskelley was very familiar with the criminal justice system. And this is actually part of a document from court. It says right here, in August of 1988 at at age of 13, Jessie Misskelley was in juvenile court on a charge of theft of property. Jessie Misskelley had been advised of his Miranda rights and was represented by a lawyer in court. In November of 1992, at 17 years old, Jessie Misskelley was in juvenile court on a charge of criminal mischief in the first degree. On October 27th and 28th, Jessie Misskelley was advised of his Miranda rights. Jessie Misskelley was again represented by a lawyer in court. On April of 1993, at 17 years of age, and just a month before the murders, Jessie Misskelley was back in juvenile court on a charge of battery in the third degree when Jessie Misskelley attacked a teenage boy and girl. Again, defendant had been advised of his Miranda rights and was represented by a lawyer in court. Prior to Jessie Misskelley's confession, he was advised of his rights 3 different times. Moreover, Misskelley immediately confessed after his conviction, then provided 2 more detailed confessions and another to a cellmate. So, once again, if this was the only confession, a lot of what he said would probably hold water. But there are 8 confessions. So a lot of what he says doesn't matter. Sorry, it just doesn't. The fact that Jessie kept confessing, and like, I don't know what more people want from that. It's like the dude literally confessed 8 times.
It is funny, actually. I said I wasn't gonna mention the response here, but What a World 369 said in response to that big thing. Keep in mind the context of this episode is the second episode where we covered the many confessions and all different sorts and variations of Jessie. So that's the context here, which makes this kind of funny. And then here's What a World says, so what is your explanation for all the details of the scene that Jessie somehow described precisely? You haven't refuted any of the evidence presented here. You need to refute the evidence and provide explanations. Did you even watch this presentation? It's funny thing, they did give a little bit of a, the tiny bit, he's the only one who seems to, Jesse's the only one who seems to be of a guilty conscience. However, he also seems to be the most mentally unstable. So, it's mentally unstable. Okay, whatever. I mean, I guess they're trying to get at that he got rocked, but whatever. Moving on, let's not get sucked into that one too much. But it is whatever. I mean, not to get too much shit talking to the audience. Max Norton says William Ramsey's abomination is an excellent breakdown of this case. And then we got JP Six Gunner said, can anyone provide links to the more recent confessions he speaks of? Asking because, as mentioned, there are other anecdotal post-conviction confessions alleged, but I like to be able to cite solid sources. That's all. Someone who has followed the case diligently may be able to verify the validity of source of the story, which appeared of a female supporter visiting Misskelley in prison who immediately ceased association with him after a meeting in which she related that he made an admission of guilt. If I remember correctly, he was upset about the other 2 receiving all the financial support while he was not. And when questioned, he said, because I was there, allegedly. It's been so long ago, I don't recall where I found the story, but if the internet is forever, I'm sure someone can find it and determine whether or not it's legitimate. I'm pretty sure it originated from a supporter or on a WM3 support site. And then edit, I just realized it's mentioned in this video at around the 118-ish timestamp. So I guess it was mentioned. Yep. Also, someone says, look at Bible Confession on YouTube. Also, Google the Evan Williams whiskey bottle thing. Callahan Files has them too. I don't know if you have anything to add to all that.
Not really. I mean, that's pretty much covers all of it.
And then JP, again, I believe they are absolutely guilty. The documentaries definitely put a hard slant in favor of reasonable doubt, but I still wasn't convinced. After a deep dive through all available evidence, I believe it confirms they are absolutely guilty. Misskelley had moved back to West Memphis after being released, and last I heard he was still running afoul of the law.
Yep.
Then What a World. Great presentation. I'm totally convinced already, but very much looking forward to your show this next week. Much love, homeboys. Thank you.
Yeah,
Mike says, you are correct. Jessie is generally considered the most contrite. The other 2 claim to be innocent until their dying breath. Ralph says the WM3 is so incredible. West Memphis 3, a huge victory for the evil demons in the world and their minions getting these monsters free. Sam saying you'll listen to it later. OG says 65.5% like/view percentage at time of airing. Keep it up or bump them numbers. Boys and girls, hit that like button. Scott says 3 gay guys. No, only 2 today. Oh, maybe he's being the West Memphis 3.
Right.
Scott is an ongoing joke where he'll pop into our chat and be like, when it's me and Austin, be like, oh, the 2 gay guys, or well, whatever. It makes me laugh. Whatever, it's engagement, bumps up the numbers, so keep them coming. Daz W with a love. And that's all the comments on these 2. We'll try to do it for future episodes. We're already a little bit later. Maybe I think we probably hit all your frequently asked question type stuff. If there's anything you want to go into, we can, or we can save it for next one. This has already been kind of long enough episode as is. So if there's any other if there's something major you want to go into, we can. But otherwise, I think we're gonna hit a good spot. But any final thoughts, and then you can drop your plugs, and we'll get out of here, bud.
Yeah. So a couple of things I'll touch on that we haven't. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to touch on this again at some point, just because it's so prominent that this is going to have to be talked about probably multiple times. But the idea that the West Memphis 3 were prosecuted because they wore black clothing and just listened to heavy metal. So Echols, Misskelley, and Baldwin got prosecuted because of their involvement in the crime. Don't ever forget that. That's exactly what it was. Now, this argument that the Arkansas legal system is corrupt, or the police are corrupt and they just had it out for them. While Damien Echols was considered a prime suspect, police eliminated over 30 persons suspected or capable of the crime. All of the cases were appealed to the Arkansas Supreme Court, in whose opinion saw no reversible errors in the original trials. Moreover, Damien Echols' case went to the United States Supreme Court, which denied a writ of certiorari. I'm not sure what that is. I have to have William explain that, which indicates there are no legal issues the Supreme Court deemed worthy of consideration. So, I mean, this entire case has been all over the place. The Supreme Court in the state of Arkansas itself and the United States Supreme Court, and nobody saw an issue with the original trials, period. They didn't. So, I mean, here's the thing, like, if this is a corrupt system, which I agree that it is, but not every bit of it is corrupt. However, if this is a wrongful conviction, this is the most like outstanding wrongful conviction case ever, that 2 separate Supreme Courts were able to not find an issue with this. Hell, the United States Supreme Court didn't even see anything wrong with the fact that they should even consider this case. And then lastly, the idea that the Arkansas prosecutor thought that they were innocent and devised an Alford plea to avoid an expensive lawsuit. So Prosecutor Ellington specifically stated that he thought that they were guilty. He just said publicly that he didn't think that he could win a new trial. It is the opinion of this author, William Ramsey, that he wanted to avoid another trial to prevent any negative impact upon his political aspirations. Ellington is currently running for Congress. I don't know how that turned out. Now, my personal opinion is that, yeah, they probably couldn't have won a new trial, but also they wanted to make sure that these 3 stayed convicted. And the best way to be able to do that is an Alford plea, because that basically allows the state to say, we had enough evidence to rightfully convict you, and they have to agree to it. So when they agree to the Alford plea, even though they maintain their innocence, which is what it allows them to do. They maintain their innocence while admitting the state had enough evidence to convict them of murder. So even they themselves, on paper, admitted that the state had it right. So, I mean, it's just the craziest thing ever. I do want to touch on the DNA, but we'll leave that for another episode. But there is like an explanation of the DNA that definitely needs to be addressed by us at some point. Because it's a whole whirlwind, and boy, when you really dig into the DNA, it makes it look so much worse for these guys, even more so than they already look. So I'll definitely leave that there for now. For anyone that wants to support what I'm doing, go check me out anywhere at Rise to Liberty or over on Substack at Beware the Mockingbird, which is like it's a companion to Rise to Liberty. So if you are a fan of anything I do, it like expands upon what I do, but you don't have to be a fan of my show. You can just read it independently. Basically you can go to allmylinks.com/Rise to Liberty, and that pulls up all my donation stuff, pulls up every social media site I'm on. You can also go to risetoliberty.store to go pick up some sweet merch. And you can also check me and the boys out every Tuesday on Already Dead.
Hell yeah, brother. And for those who like what I'm doing, leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. You can find the show on YouTube, Rumble, all the major audio podcatchers, and Twitter as well. That's at Tower Gang Jose. And if you want to support the show the best way you can, that's with money over here. Here's a QR code. Or you can go to patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. The lowest level is $2. It gives you access to early episodes. I try to do about 1 to 2 of those per week. And I try to keep out 4 behind the paywall on a given time. I think I'm around like 6 right now. I've been really bad about releasing them. So if you're a patron, you're getting even more of a deal. And you get access to an ad-free RSS feed. You get access to Telegram. You get access to the pre-show, post-show, and video calls. And me and Austin's weekly live call-in show, Already Dead, which is on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Also give a big shout out to my sponsors, which is the highest level of my Patreon, as a big thank you for their support. I'm a previous co-host in Tower Gang, at Leonard Toad, also at Abrogate D's, at ZLVRCK, at _Invit Zeal, Tim Tull, at John Klebold, big fan of the show, Torn May, at Wayne Tacklist, 1-800-CAR for Kids, No Free Lunch, Jack, Mark Vestibule, and Jacob Winograd of the Biblical Anarchy Podcast. And with that, guys, we are going to get out of here. We will catch you on the next one. We are out.